Okay, hi everyone. So before I forget, let's go to Cyber Campus and make sure I share the screen and Cyber Campus and share screen to week 14. And we go to add and smart attendance, and your lucky number is 809. 809 is your lucky number for today's smart attendance. Hooray! And so I'll let that run, and then I will move on to the reminding you that you have the first draft of your midterm paper is due by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And the same format is in the midterm paper. You will make sure that you use and cite specific information from at least 3 different chapters, from chapters 7 through 12 of the textbook, okay? And so you are already signing up for, or have signed up for the conference sessions on Zoom next week, which we will have in addition to the regular class meetings on Zoom, partly in order to complete the debates, because people signed up for debates next Friday as well. And then you will submit your final draft of the paper by the following Tuesday. I assume some of you are already, making plans now to head back. So this Zoom interaction is probably going to be all that we see each other here for before the semester ends. So, that's the plan. Remember, there is a limit on the size of the final draft, at least. It should not be longer than 500 words, give or take 10%, not including the references and so on in the final draft as the response to this question. Critique the statement, almost 30 years since the collapse of the Soviet Union, does US foreign policy towards Russia assume that Russia is an adversary, or has US foreign policy made Russia into an adversary this year? How has the US administration of Donald Trump affected the nature of US-Russia relations? How will the Biden administration likely affect US-Russian relations? And so, of course, when I thought about that question, I was thinking about what is your evaluation of the role, for example, of these vast vested interests that emerged and developed during the Cold War to contain the Soviet Union, to implement the containment strategy that employ millions of people over many, many years and involve hundreds of billions of annual economic production to supply the US military and its other security instruments. What is the role of personal relations among leaders that Donald Trump seems to have a personal relationship with Vladimir Putin? What's the significance of that into this question? What is the role of counterbalancing China? If China is a emerging much more powerful country than Russia, as we said earlier, right? Russia's entire economy is about the size of Italy. Of course, it's got lots of nuclear weapons, the legacy of the Cold War, but economically, it's a small country compared to China, which is the second largest economy in the world, and it's going to surpass the United States in a few years to become the largest economy in the world. If Russia comes to see also a challenge or threat from China, given that so few people live in Eastern Russia, in Siberia, on the border with China, the Chinese nationalists, Chinese patriots will be the first to tell you how China lost so much of its territory when it was weak during its time of decline in the 19th and into the 20th century, that so much of what is today part of Russia in the region of Siberia used to belong to China, China's territory included much of what is considered Southeast Asia today. And I'm not saying that those claims are accurate, but they do make them. And they do point out is one of the reasons why they're not going to give up the South China Sea. So if Russia is a country that is part of Europe, and that the European countries see a challenge to the interests and influence of democratic countries, will Russia potentially become an ally against Europe against China, together allying with Europe, de facto, if not officially, in an alliance. I mean, all of these questions come in. I want you to address in this essay, right? How much are vested interests driving American foreign policy? So that's the mindset behind the final exam. Is somebody trying to ask a question? No, if not, I thought I heard something in the background there. So and also we have another paragraph due next week with the syllabus also continuing the next week. So please, we have a debate topic next week as well. And I could try to open it here, but I don't really, well, I can show you. I mean, maybe I should show you this just in case somebody has not signed up yet for a Zoom conference session. They should do that. So of course, everybody's been accessing this and go into Google Documents and they can sign up for a conference session. So of course, this is when we have a regular class on Monday. And so people are signing up for the conference times. And you can see we have all the way through Friday. And just to close that, and let's see, what do people sign up for in terms of debate? So U.S. foreign policy, we have a debate today, and a number of people signed up for the debate. So we have to make sure we have two students doing the debate. I'm not in it this time. And then we have also 2 students next week. And so we need to make sure that we have everybody writes a paragraph on this topic. To South Koreans, the global effects of anthropogenic climate change will increase globalization. And okay, so that's in short the plan for this week and next week. And so back to our, let me close this and get this out of the way and stop share, and let me go to screen share and go back to the notes to introduce, that's the topic for this week. So I think I want to go to find the notes here, just to, there are the notes. Okay, so we began to talk about the climate change at the last class, and some of the current topics and issues also in U.S. transnational policies regarding human effects on the environment. There's been the effort to try to limit the growth of the world population. I think the estimates are that by the middle of this century, world population will reach 10 billion. 10 billion. All of those people have dreams, desires to better their life. Be putting more demands on the on energy use and agricultural use, land use, and so one of the responses in the American case has been the so-called Mexico City policy, because the United States is a nationalist actor. It's a nation state. So nationalist actors are more prone to be assertive and more assertive in claiming that their own formal ideologies are universalistically beneficial, right? We talked about how Hans Morgenthau described the tendency of countries to engage in nationalistic universalism. They tend to, the governments tend to cover up or veil or cloak the output of the political process of making a country's foreign policy and justifying that foreign policy in broadly appealing ideological religious symbols. And of course, the United States is a polarized society in which there are different groups and factions within the United States fighting and competing for what America stands for in the world and their understanding of human rights, right? And human rights for many conservative evangelical American nationalists tend to be Christians, includes the human rights of the unborn, claiming that abortion is murder, abortion kills babies. And so those nationalist actors that become prominent in leading the United States, like Ronald Reagan, when he won election in 1980, began a process of what was called the Mexico City policy, which is the United States opposed U.S. government funding to United Nations organizations and all organizations that are seeking to promote family planning in Africa and Asia and Latin America, including family planning involving birth control in the form of access to abortion services, right? So that women can take control of their own bodies, so that they can limit the size of their families, so that they can improve the well-being of those children they do have, and also to allow women also to have more control over their own personal destinies by controlling their reproduction. So, but of course, as I said, the same support group that's the most strong support group of Donald Trump in the United States had its first direct impact on American national politics by the election of Ronald Reagan in 1980. The evangelical conservative Christian Protestant religious movement in the United States as a political movement claims lots of credit for electing Ronald Reagan in 1980. And it's remained 40 years later very influential in the United States. And it's a reflection of the specific kinds of features that reflect the American nation and American nationalism. So, under Donald Trump, this has been, of course, implemented, that the United States will not support and fund any United Nations organizations or contractors to United Nations organizations, like non-governmental organizations who are acting on behalf of the United Nations, who receive contracts from the United Nations or contracts from the US government, will not give funding or contract funding to those organizations if those organizations are also including abortion access as one of their recommendations as their services that they're offering to people in Africa or Asia or Latin America. So Ronald Reagan forbid US support for those UN organizations and non-governmental organizations. Then when Bill Clinton came into office, he reinstituted support for that, for those organizations. Then when George W. Bush came into office, he reverted back to the Mexico City policy. And then when Barack Obama came into office, he changed the policy back to what it had been, that the United States would support so-called family planning services, family planning, including access to abortion services and resources. And then when Donald Trump was elected, he again reinstituted the Mexico City policy. And when Joe Biden is inaugurated next month on January 20th, he will renounce the Mexico City policy. And so that's an example of the intersection of domestic politics and international foreign policy of the United States, what Hook describes as so-called intermestic, international and domestic, intermestic foreign policy questions, that these issues that are a focus of great political controversy in the United States are played out also in American foreign policy through the activity of these social movements and interest groups claiming that the United States should stand for a particular position on these issues in terms of America's appeal and influence over the rest of the world. Yeah, so US President Barack Obama supported international family planning and abortion rights, then Trump reversed them. And so when Biden comes in, he will, of course, go back to the Obama administration. Yeah, Trump also called for the US government to reject cooperation with non-governmental organizations such as Planned Parenthood, which of course supports abortion services, access to abortion services as part of family planning services. And, you know, this is a fascinating topic. I mean, you know, maybe at least one quarter of all American women in the United States, 1/4 have had an abortion, is the estimate, maybe more. I've seen estimates that up to maybe 1/3 of American women have had an abortion in the United States. Yet Still, it's a topic of great controversy and political dispute in the United States about whether or not abortion should be legal in the United States. And one of the reasons why Trump won election in 2020 was his promise to appoint judges, including the US Supreme Court, as I showed you at the last class, with Amy Coney Barrett being the most recent one, who will overturn the decision in 1973 in Roe versus Wade that US Supreme Court made access to abortion a constitutionally legal. That is illegal to just forbid abortion to women in the United States. And they're hoping that that these judges that Donald Trump has nominated and the U.S. Senate has approved will now act to overturn this decision. And so expect that in the next couple of years to see whether or not the U.S. Supreme Court actually will finally overturn Roe versus Wade and allow each of the 50 American states to decide on their own whether or not abortion will be illegal or not in New York, Texas, Florida, California, Ohio, and so on. So, by the way, that scientist whose name I couldn't remember, who was the first to, or not the first, but to publicly highlight what global warming, was a scientist by the name of James Hansen. And so I think I can find that now. So we go to, let me just type in, if I can, there, James Hansen, and was that scientist who testified in his 1988 testimony during the drought occurring in the United States, the most devastating drought since the 1930s in the United States. And here you see him highlighting, calling to action, reinvigorating that discussion in 1988 about the human caused global warming through greenhouse gas emissions. So, it's remained a top national political discussion issue since then. But of course, you know, the United States was preoccupied with the end of the Cold War. That also began at this time, and then the wars in Yugoslavia and the Middle East and so on. But it became more of a prominent issue when Bill Clinton was president in the 1990s. And okay, so back to the notes, and see if I can find those notes. And I have to go back to screen share because to go back to those notes and share. So I think I'll just remove that. That's not what I want. Okay, there we go. And Hansen, I think he worked for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. He was a scientist who worked for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And yeah, I think at the time when he was testifying, yeah, so he was working at NASA. So that's how one of the arguments made about why the world should continue to expend lots of money on space research, for example, is that by studying Venus, for example, back in the 1970s was when the analysis of what was going on in Venus began this discussion about global warming, and it reinforcing itself that as the atmosphere trapped more and more heat, that the temperature of the world would rise and would cause more and more greenhouse gases to be emitted into the atmosphere through, for example, release of carbon dioxide trapped in frozen areas of the northern and southern parts of the planet. That would be released into the atmosphere, and it would cause a feedback loop, a positive feedback loop, whereby more warming would cause more emissions into the atmosphere, which would accelerate the warming even more. And supposedly Venus is an example of that, or might be an example of that happening. I mean, Venus is like 700 degrees Fahrenheit. So we already talked about the Kyoto Protocol and from 1997 and the earlier Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, and that has been the process that produced the Paris Agreement that Trump rejected in 1917 when first thing that Trump did when he was inaugurated in January of 2017 was to withdraw from the Paris Agreement, and it will be the first thing that Joe Biden does when he gets inaugurated next month, is to put the American signature of the US president back on the Paris Agreement. Keep in mind, Trump is already talking about running for president again in 4 years. Trump administration cut the Environmental Protection Agency's budget by 31% when he came into office. And we have 30 minutes left, so we have to finish this up here so we can go to our debate. And if we have some time left over, we can come back to these notes. But NASA, by studying other planets, has gotten generated lots of insight into the dangers confronting the world, planet Earth, and so Trump has attempted to reduce NASA's focus on Earth science and focus more on exploitation of space resources for national defense. So one of Trump's signature policy initiatives while he was in office was to create a separate space force, still under the control of the Air Force in the United States, but a separate space force that I think, from what, as I understand it, would be somehow related still to the Air Force, the way the Marines in the US military are still formally part of the Navy, but as a separate unit. So an autonomous unit, I should say, showing again the focus on space and a more militarized national security focus rather than on a science research focus. And one of the benefits or side outcomes of the global pandemic and the deep economic recession that it generated was a plunge in greenhouse gas emissions for a very temporary, short period of time. And so just to get to our debate topic at this point, one of the arguments proposed at this time was that in this time of great transition and crisis, in which our lives are being changed significantly as a result of the global pandemic and the economic difficulty that it's causing, that in trying to respond to the economic costs of the pandemic, that now in the process of adopting stimulus packages to restart the economy, that these stimulus packages and infrastructure programs should be focused on sustainable development through renewable energy and energy conservation should be the focus of these projects, these economic projects that the American and the Korean and the European governments and others should be focusing on. Now that they have to spend lots of money, government money, in order to encourage the growth of the economy, to overcome unemployment and alleviate economic suffering, that they should do it in a sustainable development supportive program. And there was hope that the Biden administration would be able to do this if it won election, but there had been a lot of hope a few weeks ago that there would be more support for the Democratic Party of Joe Biden, so the Democratic Party would be able to control the Congress the way President Barack Obama did 10 years ago when he was elected president, or I should say, 12 years ago when Barack Obama was elected president in 2008, and so that Joe Biden administration would be able to adopt far-reaching policies to promote renewable energy sources and sustainable development. But it might well not happen. And as I said, we won't really know the extent to which the Democratic Party of Joe Biden is going to control both the House of Representatives and the Senate to be able to adopt more far-reaching policies that reduce American government support for oil and gas and coal companies through various forms of subsidies, including tax rebates and tax exemptions for those industries, removing those tax exemptions and using the American government resources to encourage renewable energy sources like wind energy, solar energy, and other forms of energy conservation. So let's go to our debate. And the, let's see, go back to screen share, and then we go to, let me find the debate topic. And here we see, oh, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Okay, so it's Antoine Jumel and Sung Jun Moon will now have their debate on South Koreans, the global political effects of the COVID-19 pandemic will increase globalization. So I'm not in the debate this time. So I can, let me see if I can stop share and close that and go to multiple participants can share simultaneously. And so I've made that available. And so now we have Antoine, are you ready to begin?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay, so I'll keep time, 6 minutes maximum for pro, then followed by 6 minutes for con, and then pro rebuts for 4 minutes maximum, con rebuts concludes for 7 minutes, and then pro has the last word for 3 minutes. So pro speaks 3 times, first and last, con speaks twice, and I've made screen sharing option available. So you are welcome to screen share whenever you would like to do so, and you can begin.
Okay. So the coronavirus crisis will result in the increase of globalization. I want to say the increase of international exchange, the increase of circulation of goods, service, capital, and people. Why? Because first of all, the coronavirus is a global problem defined by countries and international organizations as such. And it's necessary to respond to it as a group. Secondly, because the coronavirus has brought countries closer together in this search for a grouped solution. And because the solution to the coronavirus crisis come from globalization itself. And thirdly, because the globalization is the cure for this crisis. So I will start my first point. First, a global crisis needs a globalized response. The framework of the response has been international. What happened? The country represented in WHO has received guidelines, assessments to understand the virus and then better control it. The political development of the response to the pandemic require national dialogue, international dialogue. Countries alone were not ready to respond on their own. Then regional organizations such as European Union allow a dialogue and the elaboration of common policy. Without this international assessment, no country can be efficient in resolving this crisis. The process of globalization has responded to this limitation. However, this common response was important because it was not only a question of citizen lives, it's also a question of the economic life of the world. What happened next? The International Bank lent each country money to allow the economy to survive. So in what way will this respond for a return to a normal economy, increase globalization? Because what is being sought is indeed a return to normalcy, where countries return to the international trade, where economy continue to live freely thanks to the market. That it's why man has decided to intervene and stop the self-regulation of the market. This help from the World Bank will restart the globalization for the economic health of country. Then for a health point of view, for example, we all wear masks. We will soon have a vaccine, but how they are created? Where do they come from? Elastic are produced by a country A, textile by a country B, assembly in a country C. And these masks travel all the world by boat to reach the world. States and especially European Union, for example, have decided to buy massive masks from China to protect themselves against the virus. Even in time of COVID-19, the exchange continue. Today, it's a question of finding vaccine. The competition between countries are started to be the first to find this. It will be sold to world world. This economic competition will create and creates investments, creates trade, buying around the world. Every country in the world is going to buy this solution, this cure. This solution is then globalization, because even in times of crisis, globalization continue to be there. That was my first point.
Does anyone have questions for Pro for extra credit? If not, you can wait and ask questions later if we have time. Khan will now make their opening statement.
Okay, can you hear me clearly?
Yes?
Okay, I'm on the side and I will start my presentation. It is no exaggeration to say that the coronavirus is affecting almost every aspect of our lives. From the economic aspect of declining demand for the national economy, a low GDP and economic recession, and refraining from meeting and going out with others. People suffer from discomfort and mental pain. It is highly likely that the global paradigm will change and globalization will be significantly limited due to the global political effect of the coronavirus. The global political effect of COVID-19 pandemic will not increase globalization. The COVID-19 crisis has amplified profound fault lines in the functioning of global value chains and exposed the fragility of a model characterized by the high interdependencies between leading firms and suppliers located across several continents. All at a time when timely production of critical product is more important than ever amid a pandemic that has locked down a vast part of the planet and limited economic activities in an unprecedented way. So this model revealed all its fragility to external shocks when COVID-19 struck. The persistent uncertainty related to the shift of the epicenter of the pandemic from region to region and the parallel instability affecting production costs make it difficult to resume business on a global scale, leading many farms to reduce or stall their production activities. At the same time, temporary surges of demand for certain critical commodities have not been met by increased supply since under the current model, a dramatic change in the scale of production might not be easily observed after a return to normality. This is testified by the shortage of much needed products like masks and ventilators that we've felt for the several months. The WTO said that the coronavirus has caused the biggest drop in the national trade since the World War. According to the WTO report, the ripple effect of the coronavirus on global trade was pessimistic. Trade between North America and Asia is the hardest hit by region, and the most damage is expected in the electronics and automobile industries, which have a high proportion of GVC utilization. In addition, it is analyzed that the structural limit surfactation of global value chain, which has been recognized as solid due to the coronavirus, is gradually. The simultaneous manufacturing desert created loopholes in the global supply system, and previously, crisis management, which is a supply chain, has been designed mainly for primary vendors. So the second and third vendor risk have been exposed to blind spot, and in the event of unexpected confusion, the suspension of supply from the second and third vendors has acted as a major crisis that causes global companies to stop producing. Okay, so and consequently, the hardened supply chains that rely on sourcing from a single entity or specific region for production processes are becoming common. It is now expected to respond to protectionism, which shows that destructing the international production and cooperation system has spread as countries around the world operate protectionism devices and time increases. In those cases, the EU partially controlled exports of medical suppliers, while the United States strengthened its Buy American. The United States also implemented economic and trade policies against globalization, including the enactment of the Defense Production Act. It does not come as a surprise, therefore, that most analysts concur that the current pandemic will reinforce relocation and reshoring trends. With the most economies under full or partial lockdown, and with trade and investment contracting, the future of offshoring is more uncertain than the pre-COVID-19 period. The World Trade Organization predicts a trade fall of between 13% and 32%, while UNCTAD estimates a foreign direct investment contraction of 30% to 40% during 2020. Despite the growing importance of multilateral cooperative system amid the new COVID-19 period, trade barriers have not been lowered yet. Due to political and security situations, trade barriers are hardly lowered. In China, this will be the reason why globalization will decrease in this COVID-19 era. Thank you.
Okay, any questions to Sung Jun Moon? If not, you can have another chance. He'll speak one more time. So Antoine, can you turn on your video so that we can see you?
Yeah.
Okay, and you can start your rebuttal.
Okay, so wait. So first I want to say, I don't think that the globalization will be limited. On the contrary, I think it will be encouraged. So in the other hand, I don't think that the country gain some sovereignty. The coronavirus crisis would mean a return to sovereignty for countries. Either their institution or their defense council will control and manage politics. This is not true. Countries alone are weak and cannot respond to a crisis that paralyzes them completely. It's indeed international sovereignty that is improved here, not the national sovereignty of each country. We have seen that during the crisis, countries have chosen to close their border, have to chosen protectionism. Some countries want to relocate their production. What happened afterwards? Their economic power was often too weak, and their country suffered from a lack of strategy reserve of masks, of medicine. The price of the products increased because of relocation. So globalization is the only solution that could bring our situation back to normal. And because now is the crisis, I think in the future, the globalization will increase. Because if the situation continue, hundreds of markets will close. Hundreds of people who have lost their job will keep this situation of unemployment. How can only the states guarantee a life for these people? How the countries can finance social help? Or will the country energize their territory? I don't think that the states have to become sovereign thanks to the crisis. And I think the globalization will be increased. Their situation has deteriorated as that of their citizen. Would that be the what could be the definition of a sovereign state? A weak state, unable to guarantee the common good of its population? The question is not that of sovereignty in reality. The question is whether a country is powerful or not. And today, a country is powerful and can guarantee the stability for its citizen only if it is well integrated into the chain of globalization. It's in this sense that globalization will be more important after the coronavirus crisis. For countries have lost their power, and after a war, for example, the union between countries become vital, not only for the economy, but also for finding the right policy development. Globalization is the solution. Our international organization have saved us. The International Bank has allowed us to survive. And in this sense, countries want to return to the old globalization. They want to exist on the markets. They want to sell products and buy them too because they need them, because the state alone is not powerful enough in the face of this unpredictable crisis. And that's why my second point.
Okay, Khan, your rebuttal and conclusion.
Okay. The pro mentioned that the global cooperation is important and is one of the solutions to solve this pandemic problem, and is a basic theoretical thinking that global cooperation is important to solve this pandemic. Of course, it is important even before this pandemic era. But I wonder, are such cooperate phenomena are really emerging? I think that there are many cases of conflict concerning this coronavirus, and before the pandemic, there are many conflict in all over the world. COVID-19 is causing conflict among countries and furthermore showing different interests and responses among countries. That makes globalizations more difficult. A typical example is the conflict between the US and China over the breakout of the coronavirus. The US criticized China for making the world a disaster, noting that the coronavirus was organizing was organized in Wuhan, and China responded to the same way. Even among EU countries, there are differences over the coronavirus. The biggest difference in opinion among EU appears in the issues surrounding the bond insurance. French President Macron insists that the EU member states jointly issue and guarantee bond with fund as a collateral to raise fund. Italy and Spain, two of the leading EU countries, suffer severe damage from the coronavirus. However, Germany, the EU's key economy, who has the EU's key economic power, was at odds, preferring ESM to bond issues. In addition, wealthy Nordic countries have also opposed the insurance of joint bond, saying that it would increase their economic burden. An emergency meeting was held between EU health ministers, but EU countries such as France and Germany imposed restrictions on export of sanitary goods to supply their goods. In addition, certain European countries say that their influence in EU has been significantly reduced through the 21 global financial crisis and the financial crisis in Southern Europe. And Also, in particular, the most seriously damaged areas of COVID-19 were in dire need of medical equipment, and there were some cases of conflict between countries. In some cases, the respirator, which was supposed to be purchased from Turkey by a Spanish local government, was stranded. This happened as the Turkish government also put their shipment of goods on hold, as it is urgent to secure medical supplies. Citing local sources, Spanish media described the situation as stealing. This case is an example how COVID-19 fuels the diplomatic tensions around the world. And also, Brazil is another country that adopts China's attitude. China and Brazil have had several squabbles, several conflicts since the start of the pandemic. Brazil health authorities were trying to get respirators and medical suppliers from China even before the foreign minister remarks. Also, in the Middle East, Qatar and Egypt were at odds over the Egyptian people who are stranded in Qatar. Qatar has the highest number of COVID-19 infections among Gulf countries. In an interview of the Al Qaeda, Qatar authorities said that Egyptian authorities did not allow chartered flight to transport migrant workers. Also, COVID-19 era is fueling the diplomatic conflict that has existed before. Colombia and Venezuela are typical examples. In this situation, it can be seen that countries around the world that are odds over various issues such as their own interest and the pandemic, and the supply of medical suppliers. Theoretically, it is important for the world to work together and cooperate through diplomatic means in a peaceful way. Global cooperation does not flow only ideologically in international society, where national interests and survival are the top priorities. Also, the Pro mentioned that the WTO's guideline, but there are conflicts concerning the WHO. The Donald Trump, the United States president, insists that WTO is a puppet of the China. He strongly criticized. He says that U.S. pay too much dollars a year to the WTO, while the China pays only a small portion. He says there are Chinese puppet, and he's the President Trump's hard criticism of the WHO and eventually stopped supporting it suggests that globalization is losing its status, also of the WHO's status. In particular, the US was paying the WTO the biggest levy. This is one of the reasons why the international political impact of coronavirus does not increase globalization. Thank you.
Okay, Jumel, you are pro, you have the last word. Please turn on your video.
So for the end, just I want to summarize and I want to respond to you. Sorry, I don't remember your name. But I think the union between the country for diplomacy, for economic reason, is not only a theory. Of course, it's a reality. You explain us that some country succeed to have medication to control the crisis. But in fact, why? Because they had some money gave by international institution, international organization. Just imagine, for example, the situation of the Brazil without this money, without common money will come from a union of country, of an international organization. Brazil will die. you told us, okay, the USA have problem with China. China is responsible of this virus. Maybe on the diplomatic way, it will decrease the globalization. But of course not. Of course not, because the country and US, for example, must survive. And in fact, in our paradigm, in our system, the globalization system, all the countries are linked. And I tried to explain you that with the example of the mask, where the elastic is produced there, the assembly, the mask is assembled in this country and sell to there. In fact, all the countries are linked. And okay, China is responsible of the virus, but you will see that America will continue to make trade with China because they need. And if we don't have open market, if we don't have friend to make trade, how can we live? The protectionism will never be a solution. It's impossible. It's not a radical protectionism, if you prefer. So I don't agree with you. And if you look, for example, the economy now, the invests, okay, the trading, you see that all the people now trust again in the economy and capital are sent, invests are created, you know? So I think, and I'm sure that the globalization will increase because it's the solution. When a country is low, they must find a solution in
Okay,
globalization.
let's now vote. And it's anonymous. Who won the week 14 debate? Two more votes. Two more. One more. One more. One more. This person, it's tied 5-5. So we're waiting for one more vote. "15 seconds. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. So it's tied at 5-5. Okay, and the next vote is grade the debate. Two more votes. "30 seconds.
I can't vote.
I don't know what to tell you. 20 seconds. And there you see the results. And let's see what else I have here. Okay, that's it for today. And I will end the class, okay? Bye.